Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. I'm just going to share some slides with you there just before we kick on with the presentation. Okay, there we go. So look, firstly, thanks very much for taking the time out. You're all very welcome to today's webinar, which is preparing for your kids and grandkids third level education. For those of you who don't know, my name is David Looney. I'm the Senior Financial Advisor in Alpha Wealth. I've been in the industry now for about 8 years. And today's webinar is about helping you to, I suppose, plan ahead for what is, quite a large cost that crops up in life. Along with planning for retirement and planning for kids' education is probably one of the most popular areas that we speak to our clients about. So just before we get into the throes of today's presentation, I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to Alpha Wealth and who we are and what we do. We're a financial services company located in Cork in Little Island. And we have 6 advisors there who basically provide financial advice to individuals, families, business owners in areas such as savings and investments, retirement planning and pensions, mortgages, anything at all within that personal finance space. We are, I suppose, very committed to creating long-term relationships with our clients and, helping them achieve their financial goals, whether it's, kids' education or whatever that might be. I'm joined by some of my colleagues today on the webinar, including Nick Charalambas, who's a fellow financial advisor in Alpha Wealth. And you can see me and Nick there on the screen at an event we were sponsoring a good couple of years ago now at this stage with Dermot Bannon. Obviously, the world is a very crazy place since. So look, to get straight into today's, I suppose, presentation, educational costs have obviously kind of risen over the last couple of years, and it is, I suppose, a massive burden for a lot of parents. So it's warranted to plan for it, of course. And I always think, I suppose, regardless of how expensive kids' education and, retirement and things like that is, the positive, I suppose, is that they're not unexpected costs. We know they're coming up, which means that we can plan for them. And so obviously it's good to get an idea of what we need to have in a savings fund to allocate the kids' education. And there's been a lot of study and analysis done on this. And the screen in front of you, you'll just see, I suppose, what the kind of estimated costs are at the moment to send a child through education. So primary school, between all the things you can see there, the annual cost is on average estimated to be about €1,000 per year. The lifetime cost then throughout the 8 years, obviously, of primary school is in the region of €8,000. As we move up to secondary school, things start to get a little bit more expensive. You're looking at annual cost of €1,891, and over the 6 years, a lifetime cost of €11,346. Moving up to the big one, getting a lot more expensive. Obviously, most kids nowadays are going through college, typically starting at about 18. And whether they're living at home or staying in rental accommodation, it is quite an expensive time for most parents. The projected average costs are anywhere from €4,894 if the student is living at home, right up to €9,000 per year if they're living in rented or student accommodation. Obviously, fees have gone up quite a lot, and accommodation or rent prices have gone up astronomically in the last couple of years, which is probably where a lot of this cost is coming from. But all in all, over the kind of 4 to 5 years of a typical college education, you're looking at costs of anywhere between 19,500 up to as much as 36,000. So it remains a massive, I suppose, financial burden for a lot of parents. And unfortunately, more than 52% of Irish parents at the moment say that they're going to rely on loans to finance the cost of that education. And a loan repayment, I suppose, to meet those costs I have on my screen could be anywhere from €380 per month up to €700 per month over a 5-year period, which is taking a massive chunk out of your future income. So that can be avoided really by kind of planning on and saving for it rather than relying on a loan. I think this kind of shows that we are maybe in the habit of kind of kicking the can down the road and maybe saying I'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. And it can get quite unsustainable, obviously, if you have to go looking at a large loan at that point rather than just maybe saving lesser amounts early on. So it's vital to plan early, although look, it is never too late to save yourself financial headaches down the line. And the table below just illustrates what you can achieve on a little bit of savings early on, earning, you know, a decent interest rate. This just shows if someone was saving, say, the child benefit of €140 per month over 5, 12, 18 years, which is typically the times that people start primary, secondary, and third level education, and earning an interest rate of 3.5% per year. A lot of people are probably saying, Jesus, where am I getting 3.5% per year in today's world? And it's very possible, and I'll go into that in a second. So if you are someone who is saving the child benefit, you know, from age 1 or before it, right up, I suppose, throughout the years, €140 per month child benefit after 5 years would produce a fund of €9,158. After 12 years, you're looking at a fund value of 25,000, and over 18 years, €42,000, which would put a fair dent in you know, the expected costs of kids' education. If you are someone that has maybe accumulated a lump sum already and wants to save that in addition to regular contributions, you know, I meet a lot of parents that maybe the grandparents have given the money for the child when they're born, and they want to stick it into a savings plan as well as the child benefit. Well, if that's the case, you know, you could have nearly 19,000 by the time 5 years comes around. In 12 years, you could have 36,695. Or in 18 years, 54,577. So again, you know, quite a decent savings fund there to, I suppose, put a fair dent in those education costs, and possibly even leave you with a bit left over for yourself or anything else. So it is very important at the moment, not only to save, but also to make sure savings are going to the right place. And we've seen, obviously, over the last couple of years, we're in a period of historically low interest rates. For those who aren't in financial services, I know things like interest rates and inflation, yeah, not very interesting, but unfortunately, they do have a massive bearing on pretty much everyone that has money sitting in bank accounts or credit union accounts or what have you. So rates have dramatically reduced over the last couple of years. So banks, credit unions, and post offices are giving interest of, you know, practically 0% or close to that. And some banks are even starting to charge negative interest rates, which means they're charging you for the privilege of holding your cash. And what's happening in conjunction with this is inflation, which is the rate of price increases of goods and services. And this is, you know, and remains to be, you know, a threat to people's savings. Because if you have money sitting in a credit union account earning 0%, meanwhile everything else is getting more expensive by 2% a year, what you're seeing is that your savings, the purchasing power of them, or the real value of them, is actually being eroded by 2% per year. So you're losing value essentially from saving in what's perceived to be a low risk account. So cash is not a solution for long-term savings. Never has been, never will be in my mind. Over on the right hand side here, you will see, I suppose, the impact, or just the impact that inflation can have on your savings or on our money in general, and something that probably resonated with a lot of us, the price of a pint of Guinness over the years. In 1990, it would have taken just €1.93 on average to purchase a pint of the black stuff. In 2021, today, you're looking at a cost of €5.50, so it's over doubled in cost. And that doesn't just go for Guinness, it goes for a lot of things. Everything is rising in cost pretty much. And the same can be said for kids' education costs. If you think you are somebody who's going to stick maybe 20, 30 grand in a credit union account and let it sit there for the next 18 years with it, you know, with the notion of it being to pay for kids' education, you might be quite disappointed in 18 years' time of what that money can actually purchase. So it's really, really important to make sure that your savings are growing by at least the rate of inflation, to make sure that they keep pace with it. This just shows, I suppose, how much interest rates have reduced over the last, you know, couple of decades, really down to 2016 up to now, kind of flatlining across 0%. Likely not going to change anytime soon. You've probably seen, I suppose, news articles about the European Central Bank pledging to keep interest rates low, even if inflation is rising up to 2%. So, you know, I don't think we're going to see a scenario anytime soon where we're getting, you know, interest rates of above 1% in deposit accounts. I regularly get people asking me as well if the post office or the state savings is a good place for savings, and respectfully, it's not. And I've nothing against the post office, but why I say that is that the returns are so low. And going back to our friend inflation, they don't outperform inflation. So savers are looking at a real loss by saving in the post office. Look at the 4-year National Solidarity Bond here. Locking your money in 4 years to earn just 2% or 0.5% per year, in my mind, not worth it. And there is much better options out there if you're looking at 4 or 5 year plus terms. Cash is absolutely fine, or deposits are fine for short-term stuff, changing car, going on holidays, emergency funds, grand. But for anything long-term, guys, like kids' education, retirement, building wealth into the future, cash is not a solution. The solution is to ensure your savings are going into the right place, and people who invested in savings funds which give exposure to financial markets, at least in part, have done very, very well over the long term, and it has historically paid off versus those who sit in cash. There's many reasons that you might want to invest for the future, be it retirement, kids' education, or even buying a property. And I suppose the whole purpose of this kind of long-term investing is that the longer you leave the money there, firstly, the longer your money has to grow through the power of compound interest, which has been described as the eighth wonder of the world. You'll see your money accumulate very, very quickly over time through compound interest. And secondly, over long periods of time, you're much more likely to ride out any short-term declines in financial markets and see long-term growth, because we can see over time throughout history, markets are volatile in the short term, but they move upwards over time. And we see temporary declines in markets, not permanent declines. This just shows, I suppose, the existence of a premium or a reward for those people who invest in things like equities, which are stocks, versus those that sit in cash. These actually show the real returns, which means the return after inflation is accounted for. So if you look at the last 10 years there, equities have given a real return after inflation of 3.2% per year, whereas those that have been sitting in cash have actually lost 1.9% per year in real terms. Even looking at the real long term, 118 years ago, equities real return each year over the last 118 years of 5.1%, whereas cash savers sitting at 0.7% and getting much worse, obviously, at the moment. In 2017 there, the real loss was 3.9% versus 8.4% real return for equities, showing that there is a real existence of a reward or premium for people who invest money versus sitting in cash. A couple of months ago, we decided to launch the Alpha Savings and Investment Club, basically to educate people about the options that are out there to get a better return on their money rather than sitting in bank, credit union and post office accounts. And we basically want to empower people, I suppose, to make informed decisions, because when it comes to investing, there can be a sense of kind of, venturing into the unknown, which I completely respect. But it is worth looking into, obviously. I suppose our mission statement in the club is that we want to help you achieve your financial goals, whatever they might be, whether that's kids' education or anything else, and instill good savings habits that will keep your hard-earned money working harder for you rather than sitting idle. And the way we grow our client savings is by utilizing a savings plan from Zurich that we've been using successfully for many years. It's called the Easy Access Savings Plan. Firstly, let me say that I have absolutely no ties to Zurich. We deal with pretty much every savings provider in the market, but Zurich are our preferred provider. There's no bias in that, and I'll show you why in a second. Firstly, their plan is very accessible and very flexible. It can be started from as little as €100 per month, so ideally for the child benefit, or a lump sum of €5,000, or you can do both. As I said, very flexible. You can increase your savings, decrease them, stop or restart at any stage. And the term is completely open-ended with no encashment penalties. So you can pull your money out at any stage with no penalties. Take it out in a year's time if you need to, or leave it there for 30 years. It's up to you. Now, to get a decent return on your savings, it allows you to access some of Zurich's market-leading and award-winning savings funds that have exceptional long-term track records. They have many different funds that are kind of categorized on a risk versus reward scale, which you'll see on the right-hand side. And we, spend every day speaking to clients about this concept of risk versus reward, because I appreciate for a lot of savers, they might think that, the options is to A, sit in cash, or B, take this big step into stocks and investing where you can lose all your money. And that's not accurate at all, really, because there's many different levels of risk that you can take. You can take a small bit of risk for a small bit of return. So this kind of ESNA scale, which it's called, of measuring risk, it goes from 1 to 7. And for any long-term savings like pensions, kid savings, I typically don't like people operating in either of the extremes of 1 or 7, because there's a risk, as we've seen, of being too low risk or too conservative. And there's obviously a risk of being too high risk. So most savers might operate in the kind of middle grounds, like a 3, 4, or a 5. A lot of our clients will be invested in like risk level 4, for example, for their kind of personal savings and their kid savings. So kind of middle of the road. And the important thing here is this can be changed, so it can be de-risked over time. So an approach we might take is to take a little bit more risk in the earlier years when we can afford to take that volatility in markets and get us a decent return, and then de-risk and move into lower risk, lower volatile stuff later on when we don't want to expose too much of the fund value, and we want to kind of almost lock it in. The two funds that we choose from Zurich from the outset as part of the Alpha Savings and Investment Club is a 50-50 split in the Zurich Prisma 4 fund and the Zurich Balance Fund. They're two of the most popular funds in the Irish market, and the performance you'll see below has been exceptional. Over the last 5 years, Prisma 4 has done 8% per year or more than that, and the Balance Fund has done more than 10% per year. Again, over the long term, similar return. Obviously, last year we had, I suppose, a pandemic and a massive shock to the global economy and shock to financial markets. And the funds have remained quite resilient through that period of time and been really, really consistent over the long term, which is why they are preferred funds and fund manager in Zurich. The Balance Fund has actually been in the market about 32 years, I believe. So if you can imagine, it's been through multiple recessions, multiple market declines, pandemics, and everything else, you name it, and its annualized returns each year on average were 10.42% per year over that period if somebody remained invested. So again, really, really good funds, and a vast multiple of what you would ever achieve in a bank, credit union, or post office account. Diversification obviously is a really, really important I suppose concept when it comes to successful investing, and this just shows the makeup of the Balance Fund and the Prisma 4. You can see the risk is really, really spread out across many different asset classes, many different markets, and many different areas. Some of the top holdings in, say the Balance Fund are some of your household blue chip names like, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, really, really solid companies. And as it happens, like a typical fund might have less than 1% of it allocated to Apple, which is actually the biggest company by, I suppose, market capitalization, which just goes to show you how spread out they are, and they are managed by Zurich, who are an excellent fund manager. We've been using Zurich funds for a long, long time now for savings and pension. I have a Zurich savings fund and a Zurich pension myself, for what it's worth. And I can honestly say I don't have one client who is down money in a Zurich fund. They have really been exceptional, and I have massive confidence in Zurich and in these funds going well into the future. When I speak about them, or this kind of plan for growing your savings and using it as a vehicle to accumulate money for kids' education, a lot of people say, "Oh, we have something like that. We took out something like that in the bank many years ago." And I would stress that not all plans and not all funds are the same. There's a glaring difference between many of them. This firstly compares the Prisma 4 fund in Zurich against some of the other funds from the other, the other competitors in the industry that would be kind of a similar risk level. So if you look at over 5 years, Zurich Prisma 4 has done over 8% per year, whereas the others have only done about 5 or 4% per year over the same period, despite being a similar risk profile. Again, since launch over the long term, you're looking at a similar story. So it's about, you know, making sure that you're really getting the best out there in the market for you and the best solution. Otherwise, you could be losing, as this shows, anywhere from, you know, 3 to 4% per year through not being in the best funds. And it's also important to consider what charges you're paying on the funds, because you could be losing a lot more than that. I do want to stress that Alpha Wealth are a very low cost broker, and we even cover the 1% government levy on these savings plans. There is a government levy of 1% levied on your contribution, and we give you an extra 1% on your savings to compensate for that. I've regularly seen clients that have set these up through different brokers and banks, and they're even getting 96, 97.5% allocation. So they're really, really on the back burner, and you've annual fund management charges coming off that as well, which could be anywhere from, you know, 1 to 1.5%. And I have seen clients, you know, paying 2%, even in excess in some cases. So really important to look around and ensuring you're in the best plan. If anyone is interested, okay, in looking at this as, I suppose, an alternative to grow their savings and you know, build up a lump sum for kids' education, you have to be prepared, firstly, to save as little as €100 per month or a lump sum of €5,000. You don't have to do both. We do recommend that you have a savings time frame of 5 years at least, although you can access the money if you need to. This is obviously just to kind of, I suppose, back to the concepts of long-term investing and the benefits of it. And you have to sign up to our investment club emailing list, where we'll give you ongoing updates on your fund value and you know, investment insights and all that kind of good stuff for those who are interested. Outside of kind of savings, some of the other areas that we can help clients in is, you know, like mortgage advice, whether it's, you know, switching for a better rate or trying to get on the ladder. We provide independent mortgage advice. We don't sell mortgages, but we do provide independent advice in that area to help clients. We also do protection reviews in areas like mortgage protection, life cover, income protection. Firstly, to ensure people are adequately protected against the unforeseen, and also to make sure that they're not paying too much. If you took out a policy through the bank over the last couple of years, you're likely paying too much, and we can save you some money there. Pensions advice obviously is a big part of what we do, and we can give you advice both on your existing and past schemes, and ensure that, you know, you're on track to, I suppose, enjoy a comfortable life in retirement, or take early retirement should you wish to do so. And again, that, you know, you're in schemes that don't have too high charges and are in good performing funds. And even into the more complex stuff like estate and succession planning, we can also help clients in those areas. So if anybody wants to find out a bit more about what we do, you can follow us on some of our social media channels there, like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or our website, alphawealth.ie. And my own contact details is here on screen for anybody that wants to get in touch directly. I'm more than happy to discuss any areas of your financial planning needs. If anyone is interested in looking at a savings plan for their children, there is no consultation fee, okay? It costs you nothing to have a conversation with us. And we do wish to, I suppose, offer everyone on the webinar a complimentary financial review as well. At the moment, we're doing them over phone and Zoom calls, so happy to arrange with anyone who's interested. So look, I just want to say thanks very much for your time. Really do appreciate it, and I hope everyone has a good weekend. All the best.